me a great deal of pleasure to introduce the next keynote speaker. Some of you may not have read the flyer that was available for the background of that keynote speaker, so let me sort of bring you up to speed a little bit. June D. Cleavage, I'm not quite sure what the D stands for, but she's acting professor of critical studies, Oshkosh University College in Wisconsin. She's the former director of the Winnebago Center for the Study of Popular Culture. She's producer of the acclaimed video series Working the Corners, inspired by the work of Jay Albers and Emma West. Her seminal documentary Art Cars is currently in pre-production as an off-Broadway reality TV play. She's author of several book chapters, subject of many book covers. Professor Cleavage's most recent social critique was a New York exhibition called Heroes and Hairdos, which was held at the Philip Allen Gallery in New York in the East Village. I first met Professor Cleavage by accident in Times Square, actually. And I later became acquainted with her work, particularly the Working the Corners series in Times Square, where I thought that she was really at the cutting edge of social research. I thought that it was particularly appropriate that in the climate of the InSEA emphasis on international conversations, that we should be opened up to the kind of dialogue that Professor Cleavage has to offer.
Hello. This is indeed quite an honor to be in New York City. Have any of you been to Oshkosh before? Good. So you know what Oshkosh is like, and I will be referring to Oshkosh occasionally throughout this presentation. If you just walked in, my name is Professor June D. Cleavage, and I am from Oshkosh. So we have a lot to cover. I'd like to get going. If you would turn your cell phones off, I would appreciate it. I get very easily distracted. So take that moment out, turn them off. Great. When the research conference organizers called me to invite me to present a keynote address at the InSEA Research Conference, I was very pleased to accept. The request was to present a review, review of research in art education. However, I think something was lost in the phone conversation because I thought I was supposed to present a review. R-E-V-U-E. It seems that my task was to provide a historical context for developments in the field, and again, I must apologize. I was in one of those dead zones that you get sometimes when you go to small places out of the way, and I thought he said hysterical review. So, that's a come. In doing an analysis of the field of art education, it seems appropriate to organize a review around the components that comprise many of the research projects that have been undertaken. Therefore, I will first focus on terms and definitions that are commonly used in art education. Now, some of these may not be known as well to the novice researcher, but I do encourage you to take notes throughout this, and perhaps you'd like to refer back to them later, because after all, aren't we all lifelong learners? After the terms and definitions, I will examine some of the trends in art education. These include common theoretical frameworks that characterize art education, areas of content drawn from research, some myths and cliches in our field. This review will look at, in more detail, the pervasive use of narrative in art education, and I will conclude the main part of the presentation by drawing attention to some of the achievements of prominent art educators whose views are embedded in who they are and what they do. Let me begin with terms and definitions. So the most prominent academic tradition observed in the literature is the way that nouns get used as verbs. So now, well, nerds. And it comes from computer science and it's going by nerds. This practice is especially apparent in the way art education researchers become aligned with certain areas of research expertise. And from my many, many readings of many, many journals in art education, it's apparent that there are these terms that have reached these kind of mythic proportional statusi, as they are associated with particular traditions in art education. And I'd like to refer to some of these. For example, the Zimmer mannerism. If you'd like to practice a lot, Zimmer mannerism. This describes the uncontrollable tendency to draw graphs on one of Stay up tight. This involves an all-out assault on historical data where no archive remains safe. Genre story. This is an Antipodean. What practice is this one? Antipodean. Historical epic turned into a charming 19th century boys' own travel. A recent example is the Walter Smith Chronicle of his early art education that was the subject of a series of lecture proceedings. Now, this didn't come to Oshkosh, but I heard it was fantastic. Got stirred. This is a form of feminist theory that continually intermixes cultural perspectives. This describes the thud of reality when faced with life-centered issues in the art classroom. And a grubber kit. This is a complete set of InSEA memorabilia that includes fridge magnets of passed-out InSEA past presidents. They might be available out in the hospitality area. Hernandezone. It just closed. Hernandezone. This is a name given to an area circumscribed by boundaries drawn around various critical positions. For example, every argument has a Hernandez zone. Now, this is a sense of unease felt when one accepts the president of course. Fountain. This is a sense of unease felt that is self-inflicted when one accepts the nomination of InSEA.